Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Well, once again, we have survived the week, and we welcome you back to our friendly confines, sometimes known as Tim's basement. We have all the watches you'll need to keep your weekend plans on time and your good times rolling, and I'm happy to welcome my friend Josh Thanos back.
Hey Tim. Hello,
Josh
everyone.
is here. Federico is there. Feline is right next to him, and I should note that Federico is talking watches in our live chat box tonight, so you can interact with him and ask questions of him as we roll through our talking points and answer your questions. Double-barreled action tonight, and please subscribe if you enjoy these shows. I'm not going to bang you over the head with it, but please do. We just became a 10 million view channel this week, and we're really pushing to bulk up our subscriptions.
10 million views?
10 million views.
It's a little scary, man.
Starting with me and my phone taped to a chair.
That's right, I remember that.
Yeah, and
we used to bang
phone.
into this door and then not know you were on air. It was like a nightmare.
I got moved to so many closets and side rooms and storerooms over the years with my videos set up, and now I've got a studio that I'm building. So,
yeah.
Haha, I won in the end. Anyway, guys, This or That's a new game we're going to play at the start of each show. We're going to ask our guest to choose between two watches for his collection, hypothetically, and then explain his reasoning. So, Josh, pick one of the two and explain your thinking to our viewers. Either a Patek Philippe 5711 1A, your long-stated dream watch, retail about $25,000,
Right.
or one of the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak 15202 ST, that's the jumbo, $23,000, or the 15400 ST, that's the 41mm auto at about $18,000. Price notwithstanding, or maybe it is a factor. Let me know which one you'd pick.
Well, price is always a factor, right? So, and I'll go ahead and take, for me personally, I'm going to take the 15400 off the table immediately.
Okay.
I mean, the watch itself is fantastic. Right now, AP is on the rise in regards to value. They're doing a lot of things to help
The brand equity.
Yeah, the brand equity of right, exactly. So they're cutting back on their dealers. They're making it harder for you to order watches. That just they're making it. They're trying to go the route of the Rolex and Patek, which is good, and we support that. The 15400 though is too large for my wrist, so I would go towards a 39mm Royal Oak. So if we're not discussing the 15300, which I like a lot, then it would be between the 15202 in steel and the 5711, which I know if you've been watching for a while, you know that I like the 5711, and that has become somewhat of a grail watch. That's a watch, in my opinion, that with my small, humble collection, I would be selling the majority of it to get into, because the watch sells at or around retail, pre-owned or otherwise. So that would be that case. But I'll tell you right now, so we're saying today, if I had to choose a watch, right?
Yeah, one of these two. Looks like we're talking about the jumbo.
Yeah,
or
the jumbo or the 5711. Surprisingly, you know what? Today I feel like the jumbo is where I would go for a few reasons. Number one, the brand AP is doing a lot of things that I like. So even though that watch holds value probably almost as well as the 5711 in steel, I feel like that. I wouldn't mind getting into a watch like that, and also because I've only been collecting watches for about 4 or 5 years, so I would hate to get to my mountaintop so quickly into it. So yeah, things like that has to be considered, in my opinion. I have customers who ask me about that, right? So I have for example, a really good customer who has been buying and selling watches with me for a few years now, and he always said he wanted to get into a Patek, so we had a chance to get into one that was very hard to find, and he finally pulled the trigger, and he told me, he said he almost felt like he did it too quickly. Which I can understand that now, especially. So I'll say this. Today, if I had the chance, and I had to say sell a few pieces and come up with some cash, I would go for the 15202 Jumbo. The watch is unbelievable. It's a boutique-only piece.
Sure.
And you're not going to see it everywhere. Finishing, amazing, in-house movement, yeah?
It's basically Audemars Piguet's movement at this point. It's the old JLC 920 of Bausch that was originally Vacheron, Patek, and Audemars, but Audemars has the tools to make it entirely in-house.
Right.
It's the better, finish-wise, it's the more beautiful movement of the two.
Of course.
The Patek has the more modern movement in the 324, but to me...
Ceramic bearings and things, right?
I mean, yeah, but all that tech in the 324, and I still want the beauty of the Jumbo's caliber 2121.
It's unbelievable, and it's a watch that at the right time when a 5711 comes up, because that's how it works.
Yeah.
5711, you don't find that, it finds you, right? So the Jumbo is accessible, not quite as accessible as every other watch out there, but if I wanted to find that in the next 3 weeks, I can get my hands on one, right? 5711 might take me 3 months, 6 months, who knows? So my thinking is, if I wanted a into one of those watches, I could get into the 15202 in steel fairly easily, quickly, and then once the 5711 came up, I could get out of that 15202 for near what I paid for it, so that my investment's going to be minimal. It's an easy watch to trade, and I could get right into that 5711. So that would be my progression. That's my thinking.
So in other words, buying that jumbo is a way station if you bought it like pre-owned. Like even if you bought it at boutique price, you'd probably still be able to get out of it close to what you paid with the Audemars brand on the up and the jumbo sort of their essential watch.
Right, exactly, within reason, right? So if I'm selling it to a dealer, I'm essentially I'm essentially just selling it to them, and my depreciation is their margin. So it's not something that like, okay, you buy it at retail, now it's worth 20 cents on the retail dollar. It's something that's going to be selling at or right around retail price, maybe $1,000 or $2 off retail.
Sure.
So as a pre-owned piece in good condition, so long as I didn't beat the hell out of the watch, I'm going to be getting 80% of my money back.
Now, private sale with a jumbo. If you wanted to wear it for a few years, put it on the market and say, look, I don't care if it takes me a year to sell it private, could you potentially get all your money back on a jumbo today?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the case. If you buy a watch pre-owned, right, at market value, and the market value stays steady, then even if you buy it from a dealer like us, if you have the means and the ways to find a private sale, certainly you could get what you spent out of it, so long as the market stays strong, or within probably $500 to $1,000 of.
Okay, so in other words, that's one way to look at it, as the watch you would own first rather than the one you would choose exclusively. And I really hadn't conceived the question that way, so I appreciate that unconventional insight.
You got to think about all angles,
I want to address our user, Piguet or PG. PG is asking, I'm going to ride 160 miles in June for MS, Cape Cod Getaway 2017. What is the best road bike watch? Is it the Tissot T-Touch that Tim likes? I would say you probably can't go wrong with that, but all the years that I actually wore a watch while riding a bike, I have to be honest, every single time it was a rubber-clad G-Shock. So, again, road bike, the proverbial happens, and you don't want to lose a watch of any value. I mean, even a Tissot T-Touch at just over $1,000, you probably don't want to plant that one into the tarmac. So I say wear no more watch than you're comfortable writing off entirely, because crazy crap happens on the road. Okay, so Josh, moving on from the pick of the litter,
right?
This or that, and my totally off-topic comment about watches for bikes. The news. So interesting. A little bit of post-Basel follow-up. The brands like to keep the trickle going. Karl F. Bucherer, a brand I like a great deal out of Lucerne, issued the Monero Power Reserve Retrograde watch, which is an interesting use of their peripheral rotor automatic, the CFB A1011 movement, and this one's 42.5 millimeters in stainless steel, so a good size.
Yeah.
The Monero is a less technical line than the Petravi, which we more commonly associate with that peripheral rotor. If you've seen the Evotix, you know exactly what it looks like in the Petravi application. The Monero is a little bit more delicate, and it's often a complications and dress watch platform for Bucherer. So this watch kind of recreates the Moser-style Fume dial.
Yeah.
Blue, a beautiful green dial that they're offering, and it's going to be one or the other, 188 pieces in steel. Price around $12,000 US. Day date, a power reserve on the dial, 55-hour power reserve, and like almost a one-of-a-kind winding system with the peripheral rotor. What do you think of this watch based on what you've seen and the price that they're asking?
Well, at $12,500, it seems like it's pretty reasonable. I know the Petravis tend to have a little bit of a higher retail.
Yeah, sports watches.
Right, exactly. And so, I mean, Bucherer, from a value standpoint, doesn't hold a lot of value on the resale. $12,500, it's not a terrible watch. You get a lot of bang for your buck, I believe. The dial's going to be beautiful. It's going to be something that you're not going to see every day. The complication is going to be, bringing value as well.
Yeah. A day date, you can literally refer to that every day when drafting correspondence.
Right.
And I do.
So, I mean, I like the watch as a watch. If we're talking about if we buy it at a retail price, is it going to be holding value? The answer is no. The brand doesn't. But if you like the watch, you have the 12.5, and it's not going to kill you to hold it forever. I think it's a great watch.
The other thing that's nice is that we are no longer at the beginning of cycle for the CFB A1000 caliber family. So you're no longer, Tesla style, acting as a beta tester for a new technology. That movement's been around in one form or another since 2008. And at this point, it's very reliable. I never hear bad things. The only bad thing actually came from Karl F. Bucher themselves, saying that it's a Ferrari movement and we have to charge Ferrari prices for it. I don't know if that's a knock on the movement. That's just them saying, we wish we could make more money on it, but we made it too rich. It's a wonderful caliber to get. And I would say, with your exposure relatively low, 11.5, 12.5, it's not a cheap watch by any means.
No.
But if you like it, it's a lot easier than getting into a $20,000 or $30,000 watch in gold that's going to shed 40% of its value.
Right. I mean, well, again, you look at it, the exposure is the amount of money you spend into it, right? It's not going to go to zero.
Right.
Right. So if you spend $12.5 on this watch, you have to be the first one to get it, and you're not going to get a discount at a retail level. Your exposure is the $12.5. So say, it's going to sell pre-owned for somewhere south of 50% of the value. That's what you see with Bucher. I don't know if possibly this is a watch that people love. Maybe it holds more value. We don't know. It's all speculative. That's the whole point. It's speculation. But again, it comes down to what you're comfortable with.
Okay, so questions coming through. A question from Wissam Alashak, who's asking, Tim, what is the best automatic chrono below 3,000? I'm going to say, Wissam, if you're okay buying a lesser-known reference, there are several Zenith El Primero models from the early to mid-1990s that are out there that can be obtained right around 3,000. And I have to say that if I were shooting for a chronograph at that price range, I would want an El Primero. And that would be my target. Otherwise, Josh, can you get into a 1990s, not the Speedmaster Reduced, because I know you can get into that for 3,000, and that's a great auto, but in general doesn't have a date. Can you get into a Seamaster 300-meter pre-coaxial chrono from the 90s?
Without a doubt.
For 3,000.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably going to be people asking right around that $3,000 number. I mean, depending on the condition and completeness, you're probably going to be anywhere between $2,000 and $3,000 for that watch.
So my take would be try to find an El Primero from the mid-90s that suits you. Failing that, go for a Seamaster 300-meter pre-coaxial chrono from the 90s, because you're going to get good value there. The watch isn't going to be overbearing or unwieldy in size, but it's still got that dive watch durability. It's got the date, which I like, which is why I shy away from Speedmaster Reduced as kind of an only watch. I think that would be a great watch to pick, but you've got more variety than you may imagine in that price range, although many of them are going to be powered by ETA 2894s and Value 7750s. Those are tough movements. Those are good movements. Don't discount them. I'd just go with the pedigree of the El Primero first. Now, jumping forward, Josh, this is a major news item that I mentioned the other day because it was teased on Hodinkee's website yesterday, and they said, we have a big announcement. And when Hodinkee says we have a big announcement, they mean we're about to sell you something. So, news item and a question topic from our viewer Miklos, who actually reached out and asked me what I think of Hodinkee and their limited edition with the Belgian-Swiss brand Ressence, of which I've spoken highly. And I'll even mention that I have a Ressence brochure 2017 as part of my set because I love them that much. You guys also know that I like to take humorous digs at Hodinkee and rib them when I can, so I'm going to try to be objective through this, but also be, a little bit humorous in this, because it's watches. You got to have fun, guys. So Ressence will build the branded Type 1H for the dealer/blog out of New York. It's a unique stainless steel case, not 42, because that's way too big for Hodinkee. It's going to be 41.5. That's much more reasonable. With blended lugs, not the wire lugs for which they're known. And it's going to have the Ressence module. 20 pieces, $22,500. That's pretty much entry level for Ressence in terms of their pricing structure. So it's reasonably priced by their standards, and it comes with a special 3D printed commemorative box with a big H, because after buying the Hodinkee limited edition, you need to be reminded where it came from.
That's right.
So German silver dial components, and the real news I think here is that this is the first finished Ressence module, and you can see the actual ROX module. It's the ROCS module. It's usually a underlying feature of the Ressence watches built on top of a 2824 ETA, and it's really an impressive feat. The thing is, the modular system is usually invisible. So Hodinkee has opened up the dial with Ressence. The problem is, for me, the Ressence Type 3 and Type 5, especially the Type 3 with the oil under the domed sapphire, that's kind of the heart and soul of Ressence. It's almost like buying a Blancpain that's not a 50 Fathoms, or, like buying a Audemars Piguet that's not a royal oak. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just so far outside of what makes the brand iconic that you really have to be an inside baseball type of guy into either the Hodinkee brand or the Ressence brand beyond what perhaps Ressence does best.
Well, yeah, because like their watches look like just one solid piece, like matte almost, and that's kind of what they like. It almost looks like how the hell does this whole thing work, especially with the oil inside. How long has Ressence been around for?
Ressence's been around since 2010, founded by Benoit Mintin out of Belgium. They are based in Belgium, but they actually produce in Switzerland, and they make great stuff. This is the third brand after Nomos, Zenith, and Vacheron Constantin to make a Hodinkee special edition, and I love Ressence. I can't say anything bad about Ressence, other than maybe in this case they're showing the movement that's been kind of in occultation before, at the expense of what I think has really come to define the brand. They call it lightning in a bottle, or I should say oil in a dial, with the Type 3, and that's really their thing. It's cool to see the rock system, but I can see an exploded view of it, and then that's enough for me. I don't think I need to see it full time. I wouldn't have made that trade-off.
Well, I mean, it's something different. I understand that. I mean, they Hodinkee wants to have their watches actually be set apart, right? That's the whole point of this. So the fact that Ressence went outside their comfort zone in order to do it, I guess it's okay. Obviously, it's not for everybody. You're more of a fan of Ressence than I am, though. I mean, the watches are really cool.
I love Ressence.
Yeah,
you don't love Ressence like I love Ressence.
No, and I'll admit that. I know you're going to be spending some hard-earned cash on it, from what I understand. But I mean, I think it's a cool idea. It's definitely not what I think of when I think of Ressence, so I have to see the watch in person, because I've only ever seen one Ressence watch in person, and I thought it was amazing. I couldn't believe, like, when I first saw it, I thought, like, is this some sort of screen? Like, what's going on?
Did you see one of the oil-filled models?
Yeah, the oil-filled model, exactly. That's what we had. I think one of our guys, David Salamanca, brought one in, and it was unbelievable. So,
I don't know how Ressence got through here and I didn't see it. Honestly, guys, I apologize for not making that video. But I think there are two ways to look at this. First is for Ressence, I'm glad to see them getting some volume. I'm happy to see them trying something different. Anything that can promote that little brand, which only makes about 300 pieces or less per year, I applaud broadly, because I love them. I want to see them survive the current downturn in the market, and I do know that their sales were up significantly last year, so they're in a growth mode, and I'm happy for it. Absolutely no downside for them. The broader significance, though, for Hodinkee is a little bit of up and a little bit of down. First, with at least dozens of vintage and pre-owned watches on their site, plus it seems like a new watch to sell every 2 months or so. They're a dealer now. I mean, they're officially a dealer first with a really good blog.
Right.
Whereas they're almost like the opposite of us. We're a dealer first with a really good YouTube channel. They started as a blog and a media outlet and became a dealer. So ultimately, it's just a strange combination that they're still openly touting themselves as journalists, even though they're paid retainers by brands that advertise with them. They've hardly ever said anything negative about any new watch ever. And now they're selling new watches.
Well, I'd say this. You know what? I know that Hodinkee, Ben Clymer have been very critical of dealers over the years. They have always been that way, and the fact that they are dealers now is, it's a little, strange. But in the end, they're not doing anything really different than what we are, right? No. So we like the media side, and even though some people may not believe it, neither you nor Federico are not paid or compensated in any way due to watch sales, unlike me. And I'm still critical of watches. So I believe that people can certainly be, you can be, what's the word I'm looking for?
You can have a degree of separation.
Separation, exactly. So, I think that they can still be honest and also sell watches. They just have to be honest and sell watches. So hopefully that's the way they stay, or that's the way, because I visit Hodinkee. I like the site. It's well put. The videos and their content's well done.
Yeah, the content's great. It's good stuff. I visit Hodinkee every day.
Right, but I mean, again, we're not slamming journalists and selling watches. So hopefully that they don't move forward and slam dealers.
Yeah, Ariel Adams has given up a lot of money by never selling advertorial. When he does a sponsored post, it's labeled, and he has refused pay-to-play for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, I can't speak from any firsthand knowledge of what Hodinkee's doing. All I know is that they have an ongoing commercial relationship selling products from the brands they're covering. Yeah. So they have to tread lightly. All I can say, guys, is first, micro editions have been done before. I've got a great picture of a micro edition Audemars Piguet did for Westtime a couple years ago.
That's right.
I've done a lot of hands-on reviews of micro editions, but they're usually for dealers. And this is going to be a problem between Hodinkee and the dealers and the brands, because they've got to explain to Well, the brands have to explain to their dealers why they're selling watches drop shipped for a blog that doesn't have to keep any inventory or sign a dealer agreement.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. That's a problem for them, not us, because we're pre-owned, so that's great. But I will say that the line between news and sales continues to blur. I'm a dealer, guys. I admit it. We're both dealers. I'm not a salesman.
Me specifically.
He's a salesman. But this is a dealer here. So I'd say, always go with the devil you know rather than the devil you don't, because we're quite open about it. Otherwise, Ben, the next move is yours. So, guys, in the chat box, questions coming in from the crowd. Federico is talking watches in the chat box, so ask your question there, and he's going to do his best to keep up with you. But Tausif Chowdhury has asked me, what's your take on the Zenith Dayfi El Primero and its price? Honestly, when I first saw this watch, I saw its price in Singapore dollars, and I was like, they're nuts. Then I saw the actual pricing, which is roughly like $9,600 to about $11,500, and I thought, okay, I would have tried to keep the price under 10 for two reasons. First, Zenith needs to create new friends, and while the style of the watch is bold for them, the concept is different, and I think this is a watch that could appeal to people outside the usual watch nerd circle of Zenith friends. The price needs to be aggressive to bring those people in, because you're bidding against the brands these relative newcomers already know, brands that are in many cases more established.
Right.
And especially with a little bit of blurring between the open dials of Hublot, Tag Heuer, and Zenith, all within the same corporate family, there can be some confusion, and people who don't know are scratching their heads asking, why is a Heuer 01 half the price of the Dayfi 21? So that's a problem, because Zenith finds themselves behind the power curve, as they used to say in the Navy and aviation, right off the bat. I think, though, that what you're getting objectively for the money is pretty impressive complication. They're basically taking stuff that Tag Heuer sold for deep into 5 and even 6 figures a generation ago, and they're putting it on an El Primero with an El Primero base caliber. So I like it. I think the buy is the 44mm titanium watch at about $10,500 US. I would hold off on buying the ceramized aluminum, because the jury's out on the durability of that treatment across the industry. And frankly, the solid dial $9,600 titanium version, it just doesn't show me enough of what I want to see of the movement. I like it. I don't know if it's going to appeal to the guys Zenith needs to attract, which is the loyalist of other brands.
Yeah.
So commercially, I don't know. Technically, I love it.
Yeah, I think, well, when this came out, I was up in Philadelphia and we were talking about it, and basically we said, hey, listen, you know what? If you want to watch the flop, name it a Defy. That's kind of that's a problem. But Biver is in charge of.
Jean-Claude Biver.
So,
he's.
What am I going to say?
He's ending his career with Zenith. He's saying this is the end for me.
Well, when you say ending his career, he's capping his career off, right? So we can't say anything bad about Biver. I mean, the guy's done no wrong, right?
No.
So,
it's not that Zenith is ending his career. He's saying I've got maybe 5 or 7 more years in this industry, and I'm going to give it all to Zenith if necessary.
So what I'll do is, even though I didn't really like the way the watches look, and Defy Extremes have never really been good sellers, they've always been weird watches, especially for the brand. I'm going to go ahead and defer to Biver and say, all right, well, give it a try. If you like the watch, I'd say go ahead and get it. It's a Zenith. They're doing what they can to help, to create value there. So, I believe in Biver. I like what he did with Tag. The new Carreras are awesome. I like them. So,
yeah. I mean, honestly, he did good things with Tag Heuer. He's had a great track record of success. I'll say this. Considering twin escapements, twin mainspring barrels, carbon fiber hairsprings, considering, 1/100th of a second Foudroyant resolution, if this thing said Richard Mille on it, it wouldn't be 10,500. It would be 210,500. Right. So you're getting a lot of value there. This is Zenith leveraging its experience and a little bit of recent Tag Heuer tech from Guy Simon to create a very cool watch. Now, moving forward with our views on questions. Our angle on the Habring Minute Repeater, our viewer George M., the Marquis, who normally comments on all of our live threads, asked me what I thought of the Habring Minute Repeater, which he believed had just come out. It's not quite a new watch. Some variant of this watch has been around since at least 2011.
Right.
And it doesn't quite live up to the promise that you might think when you hear Habring and Repeater. Because what Richard Habring did in the early 1990s with IWC, creating like a Volkschrono, like People's Chronograph split second, isn't really transferable to the minute repeater. First of all, the watch is a 5-minute repeater, which isn't the same thing as a minute repeater. And the price delta is like I mean, it's like tenfold. You go from like a $10,000 watch potentially to like a $100,000 watch immediately when you go from this watch, which is a 5-minute repeater, to, you know, the real thing. Jaeger LeCoultre Vacheron. Okay, Josh, your Breitling Super Quartz Aerospace does not count, even though, yeah, it does have a minute repeater.
Hey, that's a minute repeater right there. Tenfold, right?
You're not lying. You're not lying. It does repeat the minutes. Something is lost in translation there.
Fair enough.
But the basis for this repeater is actually a module that was created by Dubois de Praz in the 70s, was later modified by Kellick, was transferred in bulk from Kellick to Nivrel for the most part when Breitling bought Kellick in the early 90s. Kellick was a complication specialist that became Breitling's in-house watchmaking know-how. And Nivrel, which is a small brand run by the Hofer family, Gerd Hofer and then his daughter later, modified these repeater calibers to put them on accessible repeaters that cost as little as 5,000 euros in recent years. So the Habring model is the same module, but it's on a Habring A11 base movement. And okay, that gives it a little bit more pedigree because it's Habring's own base movement, but we've also seen this watch priced at almost $50,000 in recent years as an engraved limited edition made by Habring and engraved and skeletonized by Joachim Benzinger, who is a German engraver, kind of like Kurt Schaffo is a specialist engraver.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a $50,000 watch with a module you can find in a 5,000 euro watch. Yeah. Today's version is an open dial, 42 millimeter or steel by request, Habring special. It's not something anyone keeps in inventory. It's built to order. It has the A11 caliber with the Dubois de Praz repeater module modified by Habring on top. So it's cool. It's neat that it's got some water resistance. That's not common. Just keep in mind, this is a movement that's been used by Kellick, by Nivrel, by Chronoswiss, by Claude Mélan in recent years. So if you like the Habring style and story, buy into that. Just beware. There's nothing mechanically very unique, and there's nothing breakthrough about this watch. It's just a nice Habring that repeats the minutes.
Yeah, it's nice.
Josh, what do you think? You've sold the Chronoswiss version of this movement, the Dubois de Praz, later Kellick, later Nivrel 5-minute repeater. I mean, that watch, if you bought the Habring at 50,000 euro, based on your experience with the Chronoswiss, what would the secondary market be?
Well, I got people beating down my door for Chronoswiss watches. No, I mean, I would say that if you have to pay $50,000 for that watch, you're going to be an owner. Habring watches, it's a small manufacturer, but how many watches do they make a year?
Realistically, a couple of dozen, maybe no more than 100. There's 5 people. 2 of them are named Habring.
Okay, so I mean, I think we've seen 1 or 2 come through. So there's not a huge market for those. Those watches normally trade between private sellers, so we don't really get to see them too often. That being said, I wouldn't go, bet high on those watches in regards to an investment or a or value. But I know that there are guys out there who are collectors, and because they're only making a few watches, maybe they're not outproducing the demand. So I guess it could hold some value.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: the Habring name and pedigree of having the A11 base caliber, that's going to help a lot. Like, that's going to make a big difference between Chronoswiss and Claude Mélan and Nivrel and Kellick and all the others who've used this module. But fundamentally, it's almost like Jaguar, where resale being what it is, you essentially have to buy the car and intend to keep it for life to get maximum value out of it. And that's how I buy my watches. I never sell. So if you're the type who really has the money and loves it,
you guys.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I'm not of much use to watch you on.
No.
I would say go for it, but just remember, George, this is a watch based on a module that's been around forever. It's not the only watch out there that has the module, and it's not a new release from Habring, so keep all of that in mind. I had another question. This came to me from a couple of folks, including one client of our sales associate, Michael, who asked me what I think of Urban Jurgensen, which is a brand that is of Danish origin, today owned in Denmark, but manufacturing in Switzerland. So I think it was, I want to say it was John H. who asked this, but a couple have mentioned Urban Jurgensen in time. So let me address the brand on 2 levels. Historically, the name Urban Jurgensen and Sons is up there with like Thomas Mudge, Abraham Louis Breguet, Tompion, Arnold, like all-time great watchmaker name, and a brand that was probably intact in one form or another until the 1920s. Now, Historically, they're like Breguet in stature, but practically speaking, they're more like Blancpain in continuity. A brand that disappeared for a while, in their case, for the better part of half a century, before being revived by a gentleman named Peter Baumberger in the late 1970s. Slow recovery of manufacture during the early 80s, during the 90s, and they started during the mechanical watch recovery of the late 90s, early 2000s, talking about doing in-house calibers. Really, throughout their 1980s to present iteration, they've been the product of Peter Baumberger, his business partner, Dr. Helmut Krott, and the watchmakers who've worked behind the scenes to create watches for them, which have included, in order, Derek Pratt, Kari Voutilainen, and later Jean-Francois Mohan / his company Chronode. So they're kind of a collaborative effort mechanically. Cool watches. In 2014, they won the GPHG Award for Best Men's Watch with their Urban Jurgensen Movement Number 8, which was a very cool application of a detent chronometer escapement in a wristwatch. Think Audemars Piguet AP escapement and you get the general idea, but from a brand that's a fraction even of AP's size. Now, they also use Piguet calibers modified, and they have a couple of conventional Swiss lever escapement, non-chronometer, non-detent style movements that they've built for in-house use. So here's the thing. You wind up with a watch that's really neat, but has no real historical pedigree. You're going back about 30 years. And you wind up with the same kind of problem you have with the likes of almost like a Fisker Karma, where you've got something really cool, but it's kind of a moment in time with no continuity before or after, which means that, you know, in terms of depreciation, serviceability, and parts availability, you're really signing up for the duration with the people running this brand and hoping that they can keep it going. So, yeah, just like the Karma, it's something so unspeakably cool, I would be tempted to take the plunge on Urban Jurgensen on a watch like their 1142 PT with that detent escapement and the caliber 8, but just realize that like Laurent Ferrier, like De Bethune, like MB&F, like Ressence, you're looking at something that's highly proprietary with parts made by request as needed, no stockpiles existing like they're old, like we were just knocking old Kellick and Dubois de Praz minute repeater modules, but you know what? There's a million parts out there for them. So while they're not exotic, they're serviceable forever. When you're buying something like an Urban Jurgensen, you're really hoping...
You're limiting yourself.
Yeah, you're really hoping that the company survives and the expertise to service that watch survives and to make parts for it. Yeah. So it's an interesting brand. I like their watches. They have a very Voutilainen-esque style to them, which is no coincidence because Kari has worked for them on commission. Just be aware, they're in that same category. MB&F, Laurent Ferrier, De Bethune, Ressence, Maitre du Temps, which we actually have on the table tonight.
Oh, that's right.
But that's what I think of Urban Jurgensen. Is it a watch I would buy personally? Yeah, I would. I'm a watch nerd, and I like to live dangerously. I absolutely would. But I'm actually going to do a wrist check here, and then we're going to hear Josh's thoughts on Urban Jurgensen through the lens of our past experience with MDT, De Bethune, and early Roger Dubuis. But this is my watch that I'm wearing tonight. You guys may have noticed that I tend to put a watch on and wear it for a couple of days. Now, it's my Jaeger-LeCoultre white gold Duomet. It's a Foudroyant. 2 mainspring barrels, 2 drivetrains, 1 escapement. Looks and kind of is built like a Longo with German silver bridges and plates. So it's that miquart copper zinc nickel alloy. You can see the twin mainspring barrels. They actually wind by turning the crown in different directions. This is a watch that I love deeply, and frankly, I think if I were to keep just one from my collection, it would probably be this one. So, Josh,
So what you guys see is...
might as well second wrist check.
Yeah, might as well. Right? So we were talking about this on, what was it, Monday or Wednesday?
Yeah, we were talking about this as a Breitling I love.
Yeah, so this is my Aerospace here. It's an earlier version of the Aerospace. I put it on a rubber strap with the, I think it's Pro 2. Is the clasp? You know more about it.
Yeah, this I think is actually I want to say this is the diving Pro 3 strap you got on there.
Yeah. So there you go. That's my watch. More complicated than yours.
You know what? You've teased the minute repeater, so sound off.
Oh God.
I had a dog that used to do that with his head.
There you go.
So
captivating.
super quartz serviceable for life. That thing will still be ticking away at its 1 hertz soulless quartz tick in 30 years.
It's my most
I
wearable watch.
like premium quartz, guys, and
Yeah.
that's a Breitling I can get behind.
Me too.
So questions coming in. Any thought on the AP Royal Oak 14790 ST military dial? This is from Tanzu.
It's a 36 millimeter. Yeah.
This is a 36 millimeter that I'd say wears more like a 38, 39 because
Yeah.
of the way the case integrates with the bracelet. This is what used to be considered the AP Royal Oak automatic, the mainstream version of the Royal Oak, back when the Jumbo at 39 really was the Jumbo version, and the mainstream automatic Royal Oak was 36.
Right.
It's a watch that came out in the early 80s. It was discontinued around 2007 when the 15300, the 39 millimeter automatic, came out. I love the military dial. It's definitely quirky. It's full Arabic numerals, and I have to say that if you can get one of the Tantalum 14790s with the military dial, that'd be pretty close to a weirdo grail watch for me.
Yeah.
In steel, it's a cult watch among Audemars Piguet Cognoscenti, a watch that everyone loves. Myself included. It would be the Royal Oak that I would buy for myself if I couldn't get the Hourglass green dial version of the Jumbo. So I'm a big fan, and I wrote an article on a blog to watch a few years ago about how I thought the 14790, especially with the military dial, is a future collectible. Josh?
The lume on that thing is unbelievable. We've actually had that thing
blazes.
twice since I've been here before, and while Arabic numerals are probably last on the list out of like popular dials,
Yeah.
it's always going to be Roman numerals, hash marks, and then Arabics at the bottom. I know you like Arabics. I love Arabic numerals. Whether it be Panerai, like there's a 359 that has Arabic numerals that nobody likes that I do. But yeah, military dial on a 14790 is awesome.
And if you guys want to see what real Arabic numeral dials look like, Rolex has released a couple of them in recent years.
Yeah.
You can see the inspiration of the modern conventions, but to go with the real Arabic characters is pretty cool, and Rolex has done a couple of high-end models, specifically with their Glacier Blue dial, that are really, really cool.
Yeah.
So definitely Google that after the show, guys. And subscribe. So Josh, what do you think about Urban Jurgensen through the lens of your past experiences with watches like Maitre du Temps, De Bethune, and early Roger Dubuis?
So in regards to value, we're speaking.
Yeah.
I mean, just like any other of the micro brands, they're going to be highly speculative. Depending on how they handle their distribution, that's going to tell you how they're going to trade. And when you get into watches like this, most of them stay within privates, except for like Maitre du Temps, which you have like hundreds of thousands of dollars you're spending on these watches, and they do sell through dealers. So Maitre du Temps is different than I'd say De Bethune or Urban Jurgensen. Urban Jurgensen in regards to value retention. We don't see many Jurgensen come through our doors, and that's again because they trade between private sellers. Primarily, same thing with De Bethune. Though, like we have one of the first edition De Bethunes that we just sold recently, which is really really cool watch. The first generation Roger Dubuis we're talking about as well, which unbelievably high finish watches. And I was speaking to a customer who actually sold me a few, and we were talking about how if the dial said Patek Philippe, they'd be worth $200,000, but they say Roger Dubuis, so they're worth less than $20,000, unfortunately.
And there was, here's the thing. So Josh is saying they're basically niche brands that you can find pre-owned on the market, and then there are niche brands that only ever sell from the brand itself to collectors and then between collectors.
Right.
And Urban Jurgensen is one of those between collector type brands.
Sure.
Whereas Maitre du Temps, maybe there are a few more of them out there because of the way they sell through dealers. They have broader distribution. They also tend to wind up pre-owned at dealers.
Right.
Okay. So guys, questions coming through tonight. Josh, this is a question from Captain Zed, a longtime viewer, supporter of our wrist reviews and also the broadcasts. Are the sub 50th anniversary Kermit watches on the rise value-wise? This is the original 2003 black dial, aluminum insert, green bezel, so-called Kermit, the frog, 5-digit reference. Josh?
I wouldn't say they're on the rise. I'd say that they're holding steady, just like they have been for the last 4 or 5 years at least, if not more. Since when the Hulk was released, you saw a little bump, then a dip, and then now both of them are kind of on the same line in regards to holding value. What you're going to be paying probably between $5,000 and $6,000 for that watch.
It's
I'm
a
guessing.
premium over a standard 16610.
Right, of course.
But it's not necessarily on the move just because it was on the market for so many years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all the watches that are out there are going to be out there. So, I mean, maybe 20, 30 years from now, it's a highly collectible watch. But again, it just becomes just like the GMTs with the Pepsi or the Coke bezels. You know, you switch out a bezel now, you can't tell. So as long as the watch has box and papers, of course, you get a full set. Say like one of the first year runs with full set box and papers is going to be worth more than say a possible last year run with no box and papers, of course.
So now here's the question, I guess. Is there a way we can segment the population of the Kermits and basically say, you know what, if you have a first year with a warranty certificate that has a serial number matching the watch that's signed 2003, so it's an actual 50th anniversary Submariner,
Sure.
could that be a sub-breed of the LV? Could that be in some ways viewed as a purist's 1 year only collectible model as the true anniversary Submariner?
Certainly, yeah, absolutely. You could look at it that way. And you know, as more and more of them filter out of the market, you'll see collectors looking for certain watches, and then it all comes down to supply and demand. So the more collectors looking for this watch, the higher it's going to go. I'd say that your best example of this watch probably goes close to 7. Your worst example is probably going to be going close to below 6, right? I think that's roughly where the market is. I guess I could be wrong. I haven't looked at it in the last month or two.
It's worth talking about just because it's the kind of thing where this is one to watch. With production over, with at least 8 different dial variants of the Kermit out there. Yes, 8 different dial variants. And the 2003s probably uniquely exalted within that population. You take what has otherwise been a mass-produced watch, maybe pare it down a little bit by model year. Now we see if any kind of collector market develops. Like Josh said, it's stable,
right.
But I think most pre-owned Rolex, once depreciates, is stable. It's very rare to see a Rolex that depreciates down like 20% of its resale. It generally stabilizes.
Right. Any sport model, steel sport model is not going to die like that. I mean, the one that we saw that took the most massive hit has been the original black deep sea dweller, and that still didn't go down to 20%. Maybe it went down to 50%, which is unusual for Rolex. But there's reasons behind that.
Yeah, and so I would say buy that. That's one to buy if you like it. Absolutely no risk, especially if you buy it and then sell it to another collector.
Right.
But don't expect to make a ton of money on that. There are better late model Rolexes, especially the transitional references of the 80s, where you can still get in at reasonable prices and expect that in the immediate future you're going to start to see market recognition.
Right.
And again, I think the 666 Sea Dweller is a great example of that. Prices have not gone crazy on that one, correct?
No, not for the 666. Well, right now we were talking about it right after Basel with the release of the 43 millimeter Sea Dweller, the 40 millimeter Sea Dweller 4000. I mean, that has had a recent bump, and like you said, it's only a 2.5-year run. So down the road, that's probably going to be collectible. We've already seen the value of those in the market already increased by more than $1,000, and we're willing to pay more for them, and collectors are willing to pay more as well.
So now a couple of interesting questions floating through. Josh, first I want to give you a shout out from a gentleman, Giants fan, in our chat box. He succumbed after watching your multiple appearances with your PAM 380. He bought himself a 512. Congratulations. Nice. That's
512 is a great watch. 1940s case, 42 millimeter, I believe.
Yeah, that's a really cool watch. It's a little bit newer than your 380, probably a little bit less loved, I suppose, as you do wear that watch full time.
Yeah, beat the heck out of it.
Question from Kiki Fries, asking if the 116622 Yachtmaster 2 will ever rebound investment-wise. Yeah. You know what? That's a great watch. It's the same thing as with all other pre-owned Rolex. If you wait long enough, they all become classics. But
what is he saying? I mean, that trades. So that watch in a blue dial is going to trade for thousands more than that watch in the platinum dial. So, yeah. I mean, it trades pretty strong.
It's a strong trader. I think maybe he bought it new and he's thinking he lost a little bit on the original purchase. That's just the nature.
Unless you're buying a Daytona, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, traditionally the Yachtmasters tend to lose a lot of value. And actually, that's one of the outliers, I guess, that we don't really talk about is the original, the 16622 with the platinum dial and platinum bezel. Those tend to sell, relatively cheap compared to other models with the same retail. So that's one I would point to. But the blue dial is very strong. I mean, trading, right around $8,000 for, between, end users.
And comment coming in from Thumper JDM, who is saying he bought a Scuba Tech from Watch One based on a review with Federico. Thanks, guys. Beautiful heavy tank of a dive watch. That's a watch I love a great deal. And I remember
I wonder how long ago it was, because I bought a few of those. I wonder if you bought the one that I purchased and brought in, which was in awesome condition. I love the Scuba Tech.
That is kind of a modern cult classic because you get a lot of watch for the money. Everything about that, the ceramic bezel, the bracelet, the clasp, just the operation of the bezel. Awesome watch. Just a fantastic watch, and I have to say it's one of the few dive watches that I feel rivals the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, the 45 millimeter, for sheer richness and luxury. It is definitely a luxury diver, a Cadillac of dive watches. That's a great choice.
Nice. Well, and what that has a black and blue bezel. So like if the Batman GMT wears too small on your wrist, you can go for the Scuba Tech and get the same effect.
Yeah, it's a really handsome watch, and I have to say a video I did of the Scuba Tech a few years ago was the first video I did of any kind that was acknowledged by a brand. The social media team for Bucherer actually gave me a shout out on their Twitter, and I felt like a rock star.
There you go.
So, a sentimental value.
Pat on the back there.
So, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. It's been really cool to spend our time with you, as it always is. We have some big stuff coming up. My Talking Hands videos, where I review the watches, they're relaunching on their own dedicated channel. Yes, Josh doing the robot demonstrates exactly my technique. So they're coming back Monday, I want to say. Fed and I are going to be relaunching that channel with great ceremony. I've got about 50 reviews, including a lot of really cool marquee watches ready to roll. And since now we have a couple of channels between Govberg and Watch Want, and soon Channel 3, whatever we choose to call it. I promise that though I will release 3 new reviews a day, I will only activate 1 notification out of the 3, so you will not get carpet bombed if you subscribe to Watch You Want and Channel 3.
Oh, so I should cancel my Josh's Watches channel?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Josh. Put that one on ice for now.
All right, will do.
Guys, thanks for joining. We are doing a little bit of mailbag today. Yeah, that's Utterly Enthused. We are answering your questions. We did take a few of them. Guys, thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend. I'm Tim. He's Josh. That's Federico. She's Faylene. This is Watch You Want. Thanks for logging on.
See ya.